So Red Matter 2 released a few days ago, and its predecessor is just one of those games I've always had the intention to play, but just never quite got around to doing it. So when I saw that they were selling both games bundled together for a discounted price on the Oculus store, you can bet your ass that I just bought Red Matter 2, because breaking a 4-year streak like that is just not something I'm willing to do, unless the game's literally gifted to me or it's on sale for like £2. Anyway, Red Matter 2 is based on this dystopian sci-fi Cold War alternate reality to ours, which means that you end up with this weird and odd mismatch of new and old technologies that gives off this really strong Fallout vibe, which I'm not totally against. In the initial sequence of the game, you're located on a moon-based prison, which you have to escape. But a rude double agent has decided to transfer your consciousness into your custody officer's body in order to get you out of a simulation of the events of the first game. I mean, I was quite upset about that. I was hoping that I would have to be dodging and diving bullets as I tried to get past all the prison guards. But no, Beta just has to transfer your consciousness. I mean, who does she think she is? That aside though, you then get your spacesuit, right? And you trade your beautiful hands, these soft, well moisturized hands, for a pair of forever loving claw fingers, which I'm pretty sure is most men's worst nightmare. However, you do gain a pretty baller Jedi grab trick, so swings and roundabouts. Just be warned though, you will need to cross a basic bridge using a jetpack that's built into your spacesuit, which is a really straightforward task and super easy to achieve.
This time, you'll need to press the right stick to brake midair. This will increase your precision when landing.
Once you cross the bridge though, you're then able to enter this new capsule. And it was in this new space, this new room, that I came to the realization that I wasn't going to be taking advantage of Meta's generous refund policy when I found myself in a room filled with items from the first game. I got totally enthralled by the fact that a photograph moved when you waved it up and down, or bent if you grabbed it with your two little claw fingers and brought them together. You can pretty much interact with everything in this little room, and it gives you a decent enough background of the first game, so you're not totally clueless about what the story is, although it doesn't divulge the game's entire plot line, giving you just enough reason to want to hop into the first one to find out what happened in the accident they keep mentioning several times at the beginning, and afterwards actually. It's also here that you get your first mention of the Red Matter, which is supposedly like the fall guy, the scapegoat for everything that went wrong in the first game. And after you scan everything, and after Beta's given you her little monologue about everything that's taking place, you end up getting a call from your boy Stars, saying that he's on a top secret asteroid base in the rings of Saturn. So it was time to wave goodbye to the moon and our little blue marble in space and hitch a swift shuttle ride to meet my boy. Once you arrive at this Saturn base, and I'll be honest with you, it looked exactly how I would imagine a top secret space base would look like if it was designed and built by what is effectively the Soviet Union, an entity that wasn't exactly well known for its subtlety. This is really where the game begins. Or in my case, after checking out the illegally parked abandoned shuttle and punching a button a couple of times, I was totally taken back by being in such close proximity to Saturn, which is my favourite planet in our solar system. I spent a little bit too long staring at the fact that the surface of the planet had storms swirling around, another small detail that was probably totally unnecessary for the developers to take time to create, but really builds the immersion, and let's face it, game environments such as this really come into their own in VR. Having the perception of three-dimensional depth whilst jumping from platform to platform with very little safety gear above the second largest planet in our solar system really does instill a level of existential dread when you realise that you're this tiny little person who came from what is effectively a grain of sand in a vast ocean of nothingness, where our beliefs, our politics, our loves, our hatred, our troubles, our war and existence ultimately has no meaning or importance outside of the atmosphere of our tiny little planet, where if we destroy it, no living being bar us will care, because what is Earth outside of our solar system, outside of the star cluster that we live in, or the galaxy, or the universe? It is nothing more than a molecule floating around in a pool of countless other molecules, giving our presence little more importance than that of an ant carrying a leaf on its back to its nest. Moving on from my brief existential crisis, I managed to figure out how to get into the base, and I was immediately greeted by what I can only describe as being the cheap Chinese knockoff of HAL 9000, who gives you the first form of interaction outside the little voice in your head, via the medium of very angrily printed out messages with a happy robot drawn on the bottom of the page, that are basically threatening your life, but it has about as much intention to cause harm as a violent psychopath who suffers from ME. Diving into the pork and beans of the game, I found that the puzzles that you're presented with are all generally really well thought out. I found myself really enjoying them despite not really being a fan of puzzle games overall. They cleverly get you to interact with practically everything in the environment that you're presented with, as everything bar the really big objects can be manipulated, moved or messed with. And the little Jedi grab actually comes in handy when there's items that are a little out of your reach, especially when you pick up an item and don't actually realise it's going to be useful and toss it over your shoulder. Oh, I had that! The puzzles also have this level of weirdness about them. From powering up an automated self-surgery robot, or activating an organic 3D printer to grab yourself a freaking eyeball so you can activate a retinal scanner, or my favourite puzzle, which I'm not even sure if it's even considered as a puzzle, where you get to traverse a pitch-black backrooms-esque subterranean service tunnel that when you get through the wrong blast doors it puts you right back where you started. If you do it enough times, your character will audibly state,
"Pretty sure I've come this way before. Weird."
The best bit was that I was totally overthinking the route, as all I needed to do was drop down and turn right. They do eventually recycle certain puzzles and tasks, but they recycle them with reason. I would say that I don't blame the developers for not trying to find 15 different ways to manually reactivate a power grid or to hack into a database. Then again, I'm not a puzzle guy, so I can see why others may take offense to it. The one thing that became more and more apparent to me the further in I went was just the sheer lack of life. Whether it be on the supposed prison base on the moon or the super secure top secret asteroid base on Saturn, the game was totally devoid of life. You get snippets of what your dude Stars was up to via holographic projections, but outside that, the only interaction you have is with the HAL clone Vlad or with Beta. It generally feels like shit went down and everyone was just evacuated. It feels very post-apocalyptic in a way, the same way that Cherno and Electro feel in DayZ. You can see the signs of life, but just no life. The music in the game is really nice and it helps build tension in the environment and in the atmosphere, but I found if you actually turn off the music, the game takes on a whole different new feel. Just hearing the hum of the bass and the other environmental sounds just further drives home the sense of isolation and loneliness of your character. There are also these odd occasions where you'll find that the game world gets totally taken over by this red matter substance, which totally switches up the overall feeling of the game. It feels more like you're about to get GG2 easied and totally massacred by a 9-foot tall xenomorph. This wasn't in the simulations. Story-wise, the game's pretty on point. There aren't any crazy twists or turns that totally blow your mind, and everything was fairly predictable from a linear gameplay perspective. But it was the little tidbits you find dotted about the world, the little notes from the other characters in the game that help bring this sense of life to the environment around you and give you that little window into what they were thinking and potentially what led to the course of events you're currently experiencing. Now, the crazy thing about this game is how it looks. In fact, all the footage you've been watching thus far was played and recorded on the Quest 2. When you mention it, you can see it, the foveated rendering, texture popping and general anti-aliasing, and the 30 frames per second frame rate. But I was honestly really impressed by the technical wizardry that went into making this game look just so crisp both on PC and on the Quest platform. The lighting is awesome, the reactive reflections, texture quality and depth made me forget that I wasn't linked up to my PC. Now I think we can all agree that the visuals were probably one of the most overhyped aspects of the game. Not the story, not the puzzles, the graphics. I won't lie though, I would say that developers certainly did deliver on their promise for outstanding visual fidelity for both PC and Quest versions of the game. Obviously, visual fidelity is a subjective matter of opinion, but I would personally say that I'm not sure whether I could have gotten as immersed in the game as I did if the graphics were like the usual PS2 era Tomb Raider quality that we've gotten used to over the past couple of years. Obviously, this game wasn't developed to be compatible with the original Quest, but that doesn't upset me. If we can get more games looking like this on the Quest 2, I'm all for it. Now, I genuinely believe that Red Matter 2 is a should-have VR game. We don't get many good VR games, and we don't get them often. Do I think that it is as amazing as it was hyped up to be? No, it's a great game, but I do believe that it's more niche. I don't know many people who are die-hard puzzle fans, and even I myself found myself getting frustrated with the general lack of anything. There is combat in the game, but I didn't personally get to complete any of those missions prior to recording this video, so I can't comment on that, although I have heard that it feels more like filler material than anything substantial. Now, if you are getting the game purely because of the visuals, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Yes, the game looks amazing, awesome in fact, but the visuals only make up a tiny percentage of this game. The story and puzzles are really what need to grab your attention if you're going to get it, otherwise you'll find yourself getting increasingly more bored the further into the game you go. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for me today. If you've managed to get to this point in the video, I thank you. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Anyway, ciao.